Tonight, casualties and chaos. A building collapse during construction leaves workers trapped in the rubble.
At approximately 11:40 this morning, emergency crews were sent to a partial building collapse on the corner of Teeple Terrace and Wonderland Road.
Plus, return to red. The province sends London into red restriction, one step short of a lockdown. And struggle to survive. A young family battles for the life of their child.
Seeing her struggle when I have to give her a feeding tube and having to push through those motherly emotions, or having to just deal with sticking a needle into her leg every day.
This is CTV News.
A frantic rescue effort began during the noon hour in West London today. Workers desperately scrambling to free others who were trapped when a high-rise under construction collapsed. One worker was reported as vital signs absent, and others were injured or trapped until help could get to them. And Victoria Hospital declared a code orange, their official status for receiving casualties during a community disaster, though that was later dropped. Good evening, I'm Rita Ismail. Thank you for joining us. 2 workers are in fair condition in hospital at this hour. 1 is in serious condition and 1 is in critical condition. 1 has sadly died. Emergency crews remain on the scene at this hour, and that's where we find our Daryl Newcomb, who joins us live with the latest. Daryl.
Well, Rita, the questions are mounting just hours after this partial collapse of an apartment building that was under construction. And video filmed immediately after the collapse shows the chaos that followed. You can hear calls for help moments after the 4-story wall collapsed on top of 7 workers inside an apartment building under construction at 555 Teeple Terrace. Javier Caranton, who shot the video, says concrete was being poured on the 4th floor at the time.
In one moment, a little collection, down.
The partial collapse occurred on the east side of the building around 11:45 in the morning. Courtney Snell was leaving her home when she witnessed the aftermath.
Probably about 20 workers running out of the building, and I actually ended up catching one of them, and he said that they were pouring concrete inside and a part of the building had collapsed.
Emergency crews launched a massive rescue effort with 7 workers trapped under the rubble. They could be seen maneuvering through piles of debris, providing aid to the injured.
The building was a 4-story building. I'm not sure at what point of construction the building was under. I do know that there is a considerable amount of debris.
About 4 hours after the collapse, an unusual scene even at a significant catastrophe. Multiple healthcare workers arriving in surgical scrubs. Physicians from LHSC's Victoria Hospital assisted in an extraction, and the hospital temporarily declared a code orange, indicating it was dealing with multiple patients with severe injuries in the emergency room. Numerous construction workers were seen lingering around the site for hours after the collapse, awaiting word about their friends and colleagues.
He said that some of his friends were still in the building and he was just shaking.
At this moment, emergency crews continue their work, attempting to free the final individual that was involved in this incident. Police are asking Londoners to please avoid the area tonight. Rita?
Thanks so much, Daryl. Now, the Emergency Operations Center was activated during the events following the building collapse. Mayor Ed Holder spoke about the feeling inside the room as the operation unfolded.
This is such a tragic situation, and our hearts go out to all of the families of the workers who have been impacted, been injured, one person deceased, and words can't express how we all feel. We're heartbroken by the loss of life and the injuries as well. It's just way too sad, and certainly the feeling inside the room is one of sadness as well.
Now, the impact of the collapse went far beyond the workers on the scene. Rescue crews, emergency workers, and neighbors all felt the emotion of the moment. Our Sean Irvin spoke to them today, and he joins us live now. Sean.
Indeed, Rita, neighbors saw and heard what happened here, the tragic scene, something they're not ever going to forget. Certainly that was the case for a construction worker we spoke with today who had a message thanking emergency workers. After spending hours trying to help their friends, exhausted construction crews who were inside when the building came down shared their thanks for first responders. Roland Kovacs just missed being caught and took a moment to share some kind words about the efforts to save lives.
I just like to say for all the firefighters and ambulance who came up today and have for us, and I think they did a pretty hard job, I guess. So it's again, thank you so much for everyone who have for us today. We were there as well, and
prayers for his families.
Exactly.
A thought shared by everyone involved in the rescue effort. The emotional scene here had a traumatic impact not only on emergency responders and the construction crews working frantically to save their friends, but also neighbors who heard and saw what happened immediately afterwards. One woman who declined to be on camera shared the powerful noise she heard just after 11:30 a.m.
And I heard this horrendous sound, and it wouldn't stop, it just kept going.
Upon seeing the sight outside, her heart sank.
I knew some of the employees in there, and I hope they're okay.
A thought shared by another woman who lives nearby.
It's devastating, and I even saw mom and dad come by. Their son was in there, he's 21, and crying, but he was safe. But just to imagine whose family members are in there.
The poor guy that died, I feel sorry for him because he's just trying to do his job.
And certainly a lot of people like those you heard from are sending positive and good thoughts to these families that are undergoing unbearable pain tonight as they try to figure out what's going to happen next with their loved ones, including the search that is ongoing behind me tonight for the remaining worker believed to be inside. We'll continue to update you on this story later in the newscast, but for now, back to you, Rita.
Thanks so much, Sean. That's CTV's Sean Irvin reporting live from the scene tonight. Now, we have more photos from the scene of the collapse that viewers have sent us. They are at ctvnewslondon.ca. Just a week after moving into the orange restrict level of the province's response framework, Middlesex London will move to the red level on Monday. CTV's Merrick Sutherland reports tonight on the expected impact the move to higher restrictions will have and why those restrictions might not be enough to stem the spread.
We saw how the numbers have been trending over the last number of days in the last few weeks, and to say it's a surprise, that would not be true.
Some of the most significant changes that will go into effect is a maximum capacity of 10 people in restaurants and bars. No dancing, singing, or performing with brass or wind instruments in restaurants and bars. Gyms will be limited to 10 people inside and no more than 25 for outdoor classes. And all indoor social gatherings are limited to 5 people. Mayor Ed Holder says there was discussion with the province about whether the area would stay within orange.
We've been discussing what all the options are with the province, and ultimately it was the medical officer of health at the provincial level in discussion with our own medical officer of health who felt strongly that the numbers were such that red was inevitable.
Middlesex London is not the first area in the province to go to the red level restrictions. Data from those areas suggests that the increased restrictions do little to stem the mobility of people or the increase in cases. Director of Western's Clinical Psychology graduate program says the threat of the virus isn't as strong as a deterrent as it was during the first wave. With social gathering limited to just 5 people, Dezois says people will struggle with the inherent need to socialize.
And what's happened is over time, I think the cost-benefit ratio, people are a bit tired. They're wanting to connect with other people, even though it's risky to do so.
The new restrictions will affect local businesses at the worst time of the year, limiting people's ability to visit. But Deputy Mayor Josh Morgan says there are safe ways that you can support small business.
One of the challenges some of our restaurants and small businesses face are the size of the fees for the delivery services. So whenever there's an opportunity to use safe curbside pickup, you're really helping a small business out by allowing them to forego those fees.
The new restrictions will go into effect 1 minute after midnight on Monday. Merrick Sutherland, CTV News.
Today, the reported infection numbers from Middlesex London Health Unit indicate 33 new cases with 1 new death. Across Ontario, there were more than 1,800 new cases. Now, the outbreak at University Hospital has affected a total of 76 patients and 77 staff. That's an additional 3 patient cases and 6 staff cases in the past 24 hours. Of those, the London Health Sciences Centre is reporting that as of Friday, there are 39 active inpatient cases and 51 active staff cases. LHSC says a new outbreak has also been declared in University Hospital's 10th floor epilepsy monitoring unit, bringing the total number of units in outbreak to 9. Meanwhile, the province is pulling the trigger and moving Windsor-Essex into full lockdown. The region will remain in lockdown for at least 28 days. Health Minister Christine Elliott says it was not an easy decision, but it's needed.
What can happen with this pandemic is all of a sudden, because we are in a precarious situation with the R level being at about 1.1, that it can increase exponentially very, very quickly. And so that's what we're seeing in some parts of Ontario. And so have we acted quickly enough? I would say yes, we have.
While many parts of the province were preoccupied by the rising restrictions, the vaccine rollout continues. CTV's Colin DeMello brings us the details.
With the COVID-19 vaccine now in transit to Pearson Airport, the countdown is on.
This is V-4. 4 days to vaccination day, which is Tuesday.
The vaccination rollout will be carried out in 3 phases. Phase 1, targeting personal support workers and nurses at some of the hardest hit long-term care homes in Ottawa and the Greater Toronto area, where the virus has claimed more than 2,300 lives.
What we're starting with is moving those healthcare workers and the essential visitors from those long-term care homes to the vaccination sites. And as one of the doctors said to me, by doing that alone, we'll improve the protection of the residents in that long-term care home by 90+%, because the COVID-19 enters the home through those people.
Phase 2 will begin in early 2021 when the Moderna vaccine arrives. Healthcare workers, long-term care residents, and First Nation communities will receive their shots. Phase 3 will see wider distribution to the general public later in 2021 when more doses become available.
The truth is that this vaccine is liquid gold at this point. We are getting a very limited supply.
The vaccines will be arriving at a precarious time during this pandemic. 2 more regions today, York and Windsor, entered a lockdown.
As we begin to roll out vaccines, we can't take anything for granted. Please keep up the fight.
But some say the public health measures currently in place are simply not enough. The regional second wave lockdowns have not had the same impact as the first wave province-wide shutdown, putting an immense strain on the healthcare system. Doctors are now calling for a widespread lockdown.
From Oshawa up to Barrie, over to London and down through Niagara and the Greater Toronto Hamilton area, that's the flashing red area. And we really need to turn down the transmission rates.
The health minister says most are already facing restrictive measures, but more could be on the way.
We've taken steps with 7 public health units this week, and if we have to do more, we will, but we're following the data very, very closely.
Placing more impact now on the vaccine as the COVID-19 impact continues. Colin DeMello, CTV News.
Chief Public Health Officer Dr. Theresa Tam called on Canadians to take a stronger response to tackling the COVID-19 pandemic as the federal government released stark new modeling numbers today in Ottawa. CTV senior political correspondent Glenn McGregor has the details.
Canada is facing an alarming surge that could see the number of daily COVID cases double by the new year.
Nationally, we remain in a rapid growth trajectory.
The latest forecast from public health officials anticipates as many as 12,000 new infections each day. 15,000 Canadians will have died by Christmas. The sharp rise is driven by outbreaks in the western provinces and, again, in long-term care homes, with deaths climbing fastest among the elderly.
Yes, it is a tragedy. I completely agree with you that cases are rising.
Officials say the curve could be bent downwards if only people heeded the advice to limit their contacts.
Immediate, consistent, and strong combined efforts of individuals and local authorities in order to sufficiently reduce the current number of people we interact with each day.
There is hope in the first batch of 30,000 doses of the Pfizer vaccine, scheduled to leave Belgium today and expected in Canada by Monday. In Ontario, vaccination of long-term care home workers begins Tuesday. Other provinces are also expected to start next week. Alberta and Saskatchewan will give their first shots to ICU doctors and nurses. But the majority of Canadians won't be immunized until September. As Canadians wait for their chance to get a shot, more are going into lockdown. New restrictions were imposed on 2 different regions in Ontario, and more could be added as case counts climb. Glenn McGregor, CTV News, Ottawa.
Meteorologist Gary Archibald joins us for your first look at weather. And Gary, it was a beautiful morning and the temperature was nice and mild, but things are definitely changing as we head into the night.
You're right about that. Good evening, Rita. Good evening, folks. Mild conditions, starting to see temperatures drop off as to be expected, but still above seasonal for this hour, holding at 6 degrees. The winds out of the north at 13K. We will see the winds pick up, and also this increasing cloud cover, a massive system of low pressure that's wrapping on its reverse side some snow from colder air over the Rockies and the U.S. Central Plains. Ahead of it, warm, soupy, moist, energized air, that which we've been enjoying because it's been so mild. There's a lot of lift in the atmosphere and clouds producing rain for the weekend. We'll break down what you need to know just ahead. For now, I'll send it back to you at the desk. Rita?
Thanks so much, Gary. A baby is fighting for her life in hospital tonight as her young parents struggle between caring for their little girl and paying their mounting bills. CTV's Nick Paparella has their emotional story.
Like any 3.5-month-old baby, Riot Presley Snow is simply adorable. However, this tiny bundle of joy is struggling to stay alive and needs emergency heart surgery.
It's just a very severe congenital heart defect or heart disease. She's getting less oxygen pushed through her body, specifically having a hard time with her left lung.
She will be going through full-blown open heart surgery for a full repair and the recovery and the effects of recovery after that.
And you can see it in her hands and her feet. Sometimes they're blue, or her eyes, around her eyes get blue, and her lips. Or if she cries, which babies do, that's exhausting. It's like running a marathon every day.
Her parents, Julie Desabray and William Snow, have taken her to Children's Hospital in London. But now little Riot has been transferred to Sick Kids in Toronto.
The daunting stuff is still to come. The idea of her going through surgery is terrifying, although I know she needs to do it.
Being out of town comes at a hefty cost. The young family has been able to stay at Ronald McDonald House before, but due to the lockdown in Toronto, that's not possible this time around. So a GoFundMe page has been set up for donations.
The hotel alone is going to cost us almost $2,000, and that's just for the room though. There's no access to cooking there, so order food, buy food, and still eat
and pay rent and Christmas.
Yeah, and then bills at home don't stop while you're in Toronto.
Julie and William are taking things one day at a time, and with Christmas quickly approaching, their greatest gift would be to take their daughter home.
I think every mom, when they're pregnant, they have these dreams, and none of it correlates with wires or giving needles to your baby or shoving a tube down their nose. There's no guarantee on how long her life will be, but we want it to be the best and as normal as it can be for her.
Nick Paparella, CTV News.
Now, if you'd like to help out Riot and her family, visit ctvnewslondon.ca and go to the links section. Police and paramedics descended on Victoria Street in Clinton last night after a man allegedly assaulted 3 people with a knife. One person was taken to hospital for treatment, but police say none of the injuries are considered serious. Police say the 20-year-old suspect fled the scene but was caught 2 hours later. He's been charged with 2 counts of assault along with 5 counts of uttering death threats. Police say they won't be identifying the suspect as this is being deemed a domestic dispute. The federal government has released a climate change plan that includes steady increases to its carbon tax in each of the next 10 years. The price on carbon will continue to rise by $10 a ton until it reaches $50 per ton in 2022. By 2030, the price will reach $170. The plan also includes $8 billion in environmental funding on top of the $7 billion already introduced. Environment Minister Jonathan Wilkinson says the measures will go a long way in combating climate change.
With this plan, Canadians will exceed our 2030 greenhouse gas emissions reduction target under the Paris Agreement. We will establish the building blocks to achieve net zero by 2050, and we will create long-term and sustainable communities in every region of this country.
There will soon be a lot more places to recycle your used masks and shields in Huron County. 41 new pre-recycling bins are on their way to the county, courtesy of Eco Exeter. The South Huron District Secondary School Environmental Group has secured a grant of $3,000 to purchase more pre-collection bins. Eco Exeter started with 6 bins to collect used masks, shields, and gowns in Exeter. And in October, they've already filled one of the bins, which will be sent to a recycling facility in Toronto, where the used personal protective equipment will be incinerated. The ashes will be used to make asphalt and bricks. The heat turned into electricity. Eco Exeter suggests it would probably take a business using a few masks a day over a year to fill a bin. Now, if you're a fan of the snowbirds, you've got something to look forward to next summer. Canada's aerial acrobats will be coming to our area next summer. The Snowbirds announced their 2021 schedule earlier this week, including stops in Hanover on June 22nd and Stratford on September 15th. Now, due to the pandemic, the Snowbird schedule is clearly dependent on how each region is doing in relation to COVID-19. The flying team says they'll work with each air show to ensure the safest, most socially distanced spectacle possible. The Snowbirds were last in Hanover, flying out the Saugeen Municipal Airport in 2017 and in Stratford in 2014. Still ahead, puppy scams, how scam artists are exploiting people seeking some furry comfort during the pandemic. And Huron Waves, the music festival, goes virtual during the pandemic with Graham Greene as the host.
It's time now. Take a look at your CTV weather snapshot, brought to you by Bad Boy Superstore. Thanks to David Summers of Waterloo for this gorgeous sunset image. Just ahead, will the mild temperature trend continue into the weekend, or will a rain, wind, and wintry mix scenario be in the forecast? I'll break down the details coming up next on CTV News London.
As many families stay close to home due to COVID-19, some are online trying to find a new family pet and unfortunately falling prey to scammers. Here's CTV's Pat Foran.
I love puppies. I lost my puppy 3 weeks ago, and we were just very excited to get a new one, right?
Greg Stahula of Mississauga was sad when his beloved pet Lola died. He decided to get another dog and put an ad on Kijiji. He was contacted by someone who said they had a dog for sale in Thunder Bay. Stahula said he would buy the puppy, but was surprised when they wanted payment in Amazon gift cards.
That was a little bit of a red flag for me.
Stahula was told to send amounts for the puppy, travel insurance, and a COVID vaccine for a total of more than $3,000. After he did that, he never heard from the seller again.
I feel so bad, like that I got taken for this.
Puppy scams have become an international problem, with thieves using the loneliness and isolation of the pandemic to prey on victims.
This stuff has saturated the internet. I don't think it's possible to do an online search for a pet and not come across a scam. These are so incredibly common.
Steve Baker, an investigator with the Better Business Bureau, says the puppy scam is run by organized criminals who create fake websites, steal photos of dogs, and spoof phone numbers so they appear to be in cities they're not. He says anyone wanting a puppy should try to see it in person before paying anything.
Ask the person selling it to do a Zoom chat or something with the puppy. No scammer's ever going to do that.
Stuhula regrets being scammed out of the money he gave thieves, but was able to get another puppy he bought directly from a breeder. He wanted to share his story to warn others.
I just want people to not think of the puppy and think of of all these red flags that I should have seen.
Pat Foran, CTV News.
Today's announcement from the province that London and Middlesex are moving to red restrictions has already forced the hand of one area operation. Gateway Casino at the Western Fair District says it will suspend operations as of Monday. In a statement released today, Gateway says the casino has created a clean and safe space for employees and staff, but it didn't give an opinion about the province's decision. Under red restrictions, casinos can only allow 10 people in at a time, including staff. Gateway has said previously that it doesn't make economic sense to open under those conditions. A canceled Huron County Music Festival will take their talents online, and they've brought a Canadian acting legend along for the ride. CTV's Scott Miller reports.
The Huron Waves Music Festival was supposed to hit stages across Huron County for their inaugural performances in May, then December. The pandemic had other ideas, canceling the festival altogether. That was until the Ministry of Culture and Tourism came up with some funding to help festivals like Huron Waves to reimagine their events. So it turns out there will be a Huron Waves concert in December. It'll just be online.
So in fact, this take Southwest Ontario internationally in a way that a live program set in Exeter or Goderich or Wingham or Clinton, wherever, never could have done.
Huron Waves Celebrate the Season will be available on Sunday on Huron Waves' website as well as their YouTube and Facebook page. The initial live music festival was going to feature artists from around the world, but this reimagined festival features musicians and artists from Huron County.
It's Huron County and all the areas around Huron County that wish they were Huron County.
Artists include a world-renowned cellist from Wingham, a critically acclaimed soprano from Goderich, a ballerina from Hensel, and First Nations drummers from the Stony and Kettle Point.
Hi, I'm Graham Greene.
The narrator is none other than Canadian acting icon Graham Greene.
And it brings us great distinction to have such a famous Canadian actor and an icon, particularly to his First Nations people.
While Miller hopes to return to live performances in 2021, the virtual Huron Waves concert may be here to stay.
Maybe it will be a combination of live performance, let's say in May, which we'd always hope would be our inaugural time, but then maybe a Christmas season video as well.
Huron Waves Celebrate the Season is free to watch and will be available to watch until the end of the year. In Huron County, Scott Miller, CTV News.
Gary joins us once again with your full weather forecast. Gary, a beautiful morning today. I walked outside without my jacket on. Will this mild air mass linger into the weekend?
Oh, Rita, you'll need a jacket, an umbrella, maybe a parka. We got lots going on and lots changing as we speak. A warnings map to start things off. You'll note that in the red zone, we have a freezing rain warning until Saturday through the early morning stage. And you'll note for Tobermory, there's an anticipation that we could see snow 10 to 20 centimeters. That's why you're in the white zone. The green zone has been dropped. The areas towards the midwestern tier of southern Ontario getting hit the hardest with rain and or snow and or freezing rain. More on that in just a moment. Today certainly did start off bright and sunny and warm, mild, very spring-like, mid-March-like rather than close to mid-December-like. 8 degrees Celsius, 7 degrees above the seasonal average daytime high. And of course, the low is at 0. We'd normally be at -6. Imagine that. Look at this. Right now, temperatures through the 6 and 7 o'clock hour. Across the Midwestern tier, 4 or 5 degrees, a little warmer towards the extreme southwest and cooler towards the north and east as we go from London, Kitchener, Waterloo towards Barrie, Orillia, and Midland, Ontario. Okay, so Here's what we're dealing with, this massive spin of low pressure. Warm air is ahead of it. That's what we're tapping into right now. And with this southwesterly draw, that's why temperatures are above seasonal. That's why we're seeing rains being put down across the upper Midwestern tier of the USA, headed towards the Great Lakes. So that's ahead of the cold front. The cold front's the real push, along with the jet stream. And as you take a look at the simulation, you'll see the rains draped across southern, southwestern, and south central Ontario as we head towards midnight and beyond. In fact, rain should start from Windsor, Essex towards Chatham, Canada around midnight, and around 3 a.m. towards London, Kitchener, Waterloo. And you'll see it will pretty much last and be draped across much of southern Ontario throughout Saturday. Into Sunday, we'll see it, maybe even a changeover to a wintry mix.